All right, well, maybe a happier day on the podcast. The Blue Jays break out of the six-game losing streak with a win over the Dodgers and against Shohei Ohtani. It's a good day to be a Jays fan for once.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day.
Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. As always, I'm Brayden Iwasko. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Brayden5Iwasko. Carter First, too, as well on our main Twitter account, at Locked On Jays. A whole heck of a lot to get into on today's episode. Obviously, the Blue Jays get a win. Woo! All right.
You almost need an alarm for that by itself. Never mind the
Jesus.
sweep alarm. We need a win alarm at this point.
It's not been a good stretch, but the Blue Jays do break out of it. A lot to talk about, right? Where do our feelings stand now? Obviously, this offense is still an issue. And the timing of this off day, how will this affect the team? Is it good for them, bad for them? We'll get into all of it. But Carter, my first question to you has to be, have your feelings changed over the past few days, or are you still sort of in the same place mentally?
Pretty much in the same place. I know it's going to seem like that might be a little bit fabricated because of our reactions on the podcast. And for sure, we're going to react to the baseball on the field. That's kind of what we have to do when we do a podcast every single day. And what we were seeing on the field simply was not good. However, we did realize it was 12 games into the season now at this point. The Toronto Blue Jays are It's 2 games under 500. Not exactly the spot you want to be, but it could be a lot worse. There's still a boatload of games remaining. As much as it sucked to lose against the White Sox, lose against the Rockies in a series, you lose against the Dodgers in a series. Well, you win the third game. Again, not the exact brand of baseball you want to play. There's still things that I didn't like about this game. There's some base running issues, obviously. Then you had the defensive hiccups, which is continuously becoming a problem, which I really don't like to see, especially for a team that prides itself on defense. So, no, I'm not really that... I don't have that different of a stance mentally here, but it is definitely nice just to have a little bit of a relief to get back within the win column and actually see my favorite baseball team win a game in front of my eyes. It feels like a very long time. It's only been a week, but that's a lot of time to not have your baseball team win.
Yeah, it's sort of like an exhale, right? Like you didn't want this streak to continue on into the next series and get swept by the Dodgers. You didn't want that to happen. So a little bit of me today when they won that game, it was just a little bit of weight lifted off the shoulders, like a big, oh, okay, I can think again. Where are we at? Where are we going from here? And I think that's a good thing. But I 100% agree with you. I don't think this was a perfect baseball game, and I think it was far from it. I think there were still a lot of mistakes, still a lot of guys not showing up, and that's going to have to change at some point. We talked a lot about John Schneider getting tossed yesterday. Any piece of your mind that there was some type of players only or conversations being had, because I think it had to get to a point. And that's where I was at yesterday. I'm like, this team needs a players only. And I'm not saying maybe a name, but do you think guys are having conversations big time after yesterday or 2 days ago's game, I guess?
I think there's maybe some conversations about it, but as Major League Baseball players, there's a lot of veterans in this organization. There's a lot of veterans on the Toronto Blue Jays. I don't think they're going to be panicking too heavily after 12 games after now the last game of the Dodger series. The offense hasn't been good. They are definitely aware of that. Like, players that are playing on the Toronto Blue Jays are aware that they should maybe be playing a little bit better, or at least there is more expected of them. Players like George Springer, players like Vladimir, Guerrero Jr., Daulton, Varsho. But we're starting to see a tide shift a little bit with these players. And we're going to bring up the off day. I kind of want to just dive into that now. The off day being on Thursday here, and then you go into a Minnesota Twins series. This almost feels like a mental reset and maybe a physical reset as well with the plague that was going around inside that locker room. At this point, it's been a little while. It's been almost a week now. You hope the sickness is out of the locker room. You hope the injury bug, which is the bigger issue, is out of that locker room. Knock on wood. We'll have to see how that persists for the rest of the season. But you can almost take a step back, realize, okay, this stretch sucked. That was not a good start to the season, but there is still a million games left. And we play the Minnesota Twins, not the greatest team out there. you can start to get the barrel rolling a little bit here. You can start to get the domino effect, maybe win a series against the Minnesota Twins. Start stacking up that momentum. This could be the start. Last year, you could say there's multiple times throughout the year that the Toronto Blue Jays got the barrel rolling. Maybe it was the Bo Bichette home run against the Rangers. Maybe it was beaten up on the Athletics. There's different spots throughout the year that maybe you can say, hey, that spot, when they won that game, that was the start of a momentum shift. Maybe this is that one moment in the year. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself as well because we are 12 games into the season. But maybe this is something that they can use to ride this momentum and just allow them to play a little bit more of their own brand of baseball and the brand that we're accustomed to seeing from the 2025, at least, Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, I think, honestly, that's the interesting piece to all of this, right? Is when off days happen, is it advantageous or is it a disadvantage for some teams? And I look where the Jays are right now, and yes, they're coming off a win, and usually I'd say this sucks because they need to keep the momentum from the win. But in this case, with the injuries, the sickness, like you said, and just the fact that they're one win out from a 6-game losing skid, I think this team needs a day to go get their mental back. And I know a bunch of them were at the Leafs game the other day, or last night as well. They went after the game to the Leafs game, watched the Leafs get pummeled. We're not Leafs fans, by the way. We're Canucks fans. So
much better.
Yeah, it sucks too. So don't take any offense by it. But in doing that, I think it does. It takes your mind off baseball for a night, right, Carter? You used to remember being in tournaments or whatever, right? Where you'd play like Thursday to Monday and you'd have like 2 or 3 games a day because that's how the schedule rocked out. And then if you went into one of those tournaments and got absolutely killed every single game, it was nice on the Tuesday to say, okay, I don't have to think about baseball for a day because I need to just get out of this funk, this slump, this, I don't want to say like depression, but that's a little bit where it puts you in a bad mental state because you're just getting shellacked every game. And so for the Blue Jays to now come out of this off day, especially coming off with a win, I think is going to be big, and not playing one of the best teams in baseball after this either.
I think that's the biggest thing, is coming off of a win and just coming off of something positive, having an extra day just to know that you're not going to lose a baseball game. Nothing negative can happen. Nobody, hopefully, knock on wood, nobody can or should get injured on an off day. So you would think that nothing negative is going to happen on a Thursday. The Toronto Blue Jays' goal is to win the off day, go back-to-back wins. Haven't had that in a while. Haven't had that since the first series. Hopefully the Toronto Blue Jays can at least win the off day. But you beat the Dodgers, even though it was only 1 out of 3 games. That is something to hold your hat on. Dylan Cease looked good. Jeff Hoffman closes out the game. You actually scored some runs, even though I would have liked them to, come through a little bit more often, especially Shohei Ohtani. I don't think he obviously had his best stuff throughout this game. But there were some better things that we saw in this game. Like Daulton Varsho, the at-bats, we talked throughout the entirety of the year, they've looked horrible. The last 2 games, especially in this game, the at-bats starting to look a little bit better, swinging with more authority, more intent, and just taking better swings. Like throughout this entirety of the offense, you look throughout the entirety of the lineup, a lot of this is swing selection. These guys get themselves into decent counts, whether it's a 3-2, 2-2 count. It's an advantage count, but then they'll swing at a borderline pitch, a ball off the plate. Nathan Lucas is one of the worst candidates for that, swinging at a ball 4, literally seemingly like it's every single time. But the offense starting to having their struggles, actually coming through in some big moments, having Davis Schneider running the base paths effectively, doing, more of the little things on the bases, at least, right? When you still had some of the other things that you got to obviously be better at throughout the season. There were at least some things to take away compared to things throughout the 6-game losing streak where there's almost nothing to take away from that baseball being played.
Yeah, Carter, and we're going to get into more specific because there's a few guys in particular that I want to talk about, so we'll do that in the second segment. But just going off of what you were talking about with Daulton Varsho, right, is finding that swing. And we all know that Daulton Varsho is a hot and cold player. That's just what he is. That's what he's always been. You'll go through stretches where you're like, holy Christ, this guy may hit 35 home runs. But then 2 weeks later, he's swinging. He wouldn't hit a beach ball out there. He's swinging the garden hose, as you like to say, Carter, the old MLB The Show quote. So yeah, it was an interesting win because I don't think a lot of Blue Jays fans come out of this win and think, wow, this team is fully back, because there are still big time problem areas. But I think it gives not only the players, we just talked about that break, that off day with a win. I think it does the same thing for the fan base as well, of just being able to hang their hat that this team isn't completely I was going to say something else horrible, I guess I'll say, that they can put together wins and they can scrap together wins even when they're not at their best, which is a sign of good baseball teams, right? When things aren't going your way, you aren't playing your best kind of baseball. And I think you said it in the TikTok yesterday or the short or whatever, that finding ways to get wins when you're not at your best or you're not at your healthiest is stuff that good baseball teams do. Now, we'll find out if this team is a good baseball team in the remaining 145 games, 150 games that there are. But at least I think that's a good way to go into this off day, thinking that at least.
It's a start. It's better than it was, which we're just looking for some sort of positiveness. We're looking to gradually get back to a point where we can say, hey, this is a good baseball team. This is a baseball team that we can get behind and actually be confident that they can beat teams, whether it is, the Colorado Rockies, the Chicago White Sox, or if it ends up being the Los Angeles Dodgers. And you still do have a relatively soft schedule, like the Minnesota Twins are rolling into town. I don't think they're going to be a very good team this year. You do have a little bit of tough pitchers, which we'll go over probably on tomorrow's episode in more depth. But you're starting to see the wheels starting to turn a little bit here. You look down the road, you start getting some of your starting pitching back. If you're in a decent spot where you're even just hovering around 500 at the end of April, I think that's going to be an okay spot. Maybe not where you want it to be, like on the onset of the season, but then with all things considered, with all the injuries that you had, with the sickness, with the caliber of baseball that you're playing, I think that it could be a lot worse than it is for Toronto Blue Jays fans. And just like looking at it from a team perspective as well, at least from a fan base perspective, is that like you said, the fan base almost needed this. So just as a reminder that this team actually has the capabilities of beating a team like the Los Angeles Dodgers, because it is 6 games. It is only 6 games in a 162 game season. When it's 6 games in a row and it's so early on the season, it starts to creep in, even for us a little bit. Again, we've been doing this for a long enough time that you kind of shut those down immediately. But you think, hey, like, is this team really a bad baseball team? Like, we've seen it so many games in a row now. It starts to almost make you question what you're seeing and what you know about the Toronto Blue Jays. So just having a little bit more certainty, just in that headspace for fans, is definitely nice to have early on the season.
Carter, so we're going to dive more into some of the players, but I want to respond to what you just said coming out of the break. And then, of course, we'll get more player-specific, situational-specific. There's one big thing, a glaring problem right now that we'll definitely talk about. But, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back with all of that. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. Here's what I like about FanDuel. Just a couple things. I mean, there are a lot. You can bet just $5 and you'll get $250 in bonus bets back if your first bet wins. So there you go, a little bonus. I like the same game parlays. Personally, I like to, create something. I've got one on for the Masters starting today as well, like some 3-ball action. So, there's March Madness, there's Masters, baseball, hockey, NBA. There's everything right now. Head to FanDuel.com and get started. FanDuel, play your game.
Today's episode is also sponsored by Indeed. There's workplace chaos, the deadlines are stacking up, the inbox is overflowing, and there is still that one position that you need to fill that is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is the job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. They have the right skills, the right experience, they're at the right location, so you're not just hoping that the right candidate is going to stumble across your post. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing those candidates who check all of your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. There's less time involved, there's less stress, and you get more results. When you need the right person to cut through that chaos, this is the job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed from this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is the job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
Well, Carter, you mentioned the fact that, it's proving or reminding the fan base that they can beat good teams. And I think that's big for the players as well, right? Where they stack themselves up. And yes, anybody can beat anybody. It's baseball. That happens. One day you'll have the Blue Jays lose a series to the White Sox. The next day, the Dodgers will drop one probably only against the Rockies or something like that. But it does happen. And I think where my frustrations lie, Carter, with this team is some of the problem areas. And the fact is that we can see it, right? Sometimes teams go through spells where everything isn't working, right? But it's more frustrating when it's something that you know your team is good at and can do. And that's talking about two things over the past since last year anyway, which is their defense, which has been phenomenal last season, and their base running got a whole bunch better last year. And two things that have been sort of hurting this team, and I know we'll get into the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. part of all of this, but I wanted to start here, Carter. One statistic that really, really bothers me, because I am one of the biggest guys on clutch hitting. And again, not just the 8th or 9th inning. I talk about this every podcast, almost every episode. It's not just the 8th or 9th inning. It's big moments in games where the bases are loaded or you need that run, maybe that extra run to give your team even more confidence, whatever it is. They are 1 for 19 this season with 6 strikeouts with the bases loaded. That's horrible. And that's something that we're missing from last year. And I think I would say back 2/3 of the season, I'll say this team was great at cashing in runs, right? Where when they would get the momentum going in an inning, they would be able to keep it going. And the other part of this, and I talked a lot about this last year, especially leading up to when they got good, was the fact that you can't just score runs in one inning and pray to God that it's enough, because majority of the time it won't be. 4 or 5 runs can go quickly if the other team gets a one big inning there and then they add on in another inning. Adding on runs consistently throughout the game. So, and again, you're not expecting a team to go out there and put up a run an inning, but maybe early in the game you put up 2 or 3. Then later in the game, you need to add on. You have to get those insurance runs later in the game. So this offense in totality, Carter, I mean, just with the ability to drive in runs has just been straight up horrible. I mean, Davis Schneider who knows what happens if the pass ball doesn't get by and he goes and he continues to move. So I don't know. I think this game could have gone very differently if one thing didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that about a lot of baseball games. They say baseball is a game of inches. Like, there's always the what ifs, should have, would have, could have. When it goes the Toronto Blue Jays way, especially with the way things have been going, I'm definitely not going to question things at this point. But you brought up something about scoring runs in multiple innings. You just brought up, obviously, how you need to score for an offense just in the game. Like, you just need more runs. You score more runs, you probably have a better chance of winning the game.
Easy as that.
But also, I want to bring up another point, is that something that has to be said about momentum in this as well. If you score all of your runs in the first inning, and then a pitcher kind of finds himself, maybe he redials in. Because a lot of the time, especially in a regular season game, if your pitcher gets blown up in the first inning, they're probably going to have to pitch. A lot of these bullpens don't have the arms, don't have the long men in the bullpen that they can eat 8 innings, 9 innings, depending if they get it out or not. So if you have a pitcher that gets blown up in the first inning, maybe they find themselves again, and it's only the 4th or 4 or 5 spot, which in the first inning, that seems like a lot, but then you get to the 5th inning, the 6th inning, and you continue to not score runs, and maybe the other team's starting to chip away. They get 1 in the 2nd, they get 2 in the 3rd, they get 1 in the 5th. At that point, when you had that 5 spot, it looked like things were, all sunshine and rainbows, and then all of a sudden you get to the 6th inning, maybe it's 5-4, one swing of the bat, you start to lose the game. If you score multiple runs in multiple innings, it has a little bit of a mental effect on the other team, especially the other pitching staff, when you're continuing to put together good at-bats, when you're continuing to have those tough at-bats, allow those pitch net counts to get higher, have good contact, drive the ball into the outfield. There's something to be said about the mental aspect that does have on an opposing pitching staff, not just scoring all of your runs at one point in the game, continuing to kind of hammer that dagger into the chest of your opponent just to realize that, hey, we're still here and we still are right on top of things.
Carter, you brought up something there that I wanted to sort of go off on a little tangent, I guess. And the fact is that when players get beat early, or pitchers get beat up early, so say it's the Blue Jays pitcher and I don't know, Eric Lauer's on the mound, just as a whatever, right? And he gets tagged for 2 or 3 early. That cannot take your offense out of the game, because then what if Eric Lauer finds it again, right? And has another 2, 3, 4 good innings after that, and your offense is down and out. And I think we've seen that happen with the Blue Jays, where they get down a few runs and it feels like this season the world's ending. Where last year, it was like this team had fight every game. It didn't matter how many they were down. You could never count them out. This season's been a lot different. And so I think that's a big part of this as well. We talk a lot about mentality, right? And believing, I bring this up all the time as well. When you're at the plate, you better believe that you're the best player on that diamond, right? When you're pitching and going against somebody, you better believe that you're better than they are, because that's a huge part of it, right? You don't want to be shaking in your boots up there. And I think just the mentality aspect of the game can sometimes defeat players, and sometimes they just need a little bit of a reminder that, hey, do the right things and the right things will happen for you eventually.
And a player that we haven't seen him do this recently, maybe a little bit earlier in his career, maybe got a little bit of a reminder about that today. We talked about the offense, the lack of, production, the lack of momentum, the lack of just anything that we have seen from this offense, whether there's runners on or no runners on as well. I don't want to, be a scapegoat for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. here, but I think this might have a little bit to do with what happened in the sixth inning. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hits a double, 108 miles an hour, like a beautiful swing, first double of the year. We want to see more of those. But then Jesus Sanchez comes up to the plate and hits a ball to the shortstop. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. decides to try to advance from second to third base, and it's not even close. He's absolutely hung like a sitting duck from Miguel Rojas. It's not even a close play. Do you think that, with the recent struggles from the offense, with there being one out at that point, with the assuming that, they make the play at first base, if Vladdy can get the third, there's only one out. At that point, your offense only needs a fly ball rather than a single or a hit into the outfield. Do you think that had something to do with maybe Vladdy trying to be a little bit more aggressive on the base pass, just with the lack of production we've seen from this offense?
Absolutely, Carter. That goes to exactly what I just said, right? It's guys doing too much. And usually when you have team success, it comes from guys doing the right things, and you just have to wait for the right things to pay off.
And also fulfilling their own roles and not trying to be a power hitter when you're a guy like Ernie Clement, where you slap singles, not trying to steal bases when you're Alejandro Kirk.
Exactly. Yeah. Nail on the head. Oof. God, I would love to see that one day again. But no, in the same breath that I was saying before is the fact that it's a mentality thing. And what can start to creep into your mind, no matter what sport it is if I do a little bit of this, maybe I'll put us in a position. No. Slow down. Do the right things, and eventually it will pay off. Now, will it pay off in that moment? Maybe not. Maybe they don't get Vlad to third. Maybe they don't get Vlad home in that situation. But you have to believe in the process. And I know that's such a throwaway sports term at this point is trust the process, do that. Like, I feel like I'm in a hockey interview right now, but that's what it is. And it is really just that simple. You have to believe that if you do the right things, it will pay off at some point. And it may not be that game, but if you continue that through 162 games, at some point it's going to catch up to you and reward you for being and doing the right things.
What is the quote that we've been hearing from John Schneider consistently at the start of the season? We have to get back to playing our game. We have to get back to playing our brand of baseball. What is that brand? It's not striking out. It's having those tough at-bats. It's fouling off tough pitches. It's not making those mental mistakes, whether on the base paths, whether it's defensively. This team has, 10 errors through 12 games? That's not something that I'm accustomed to seeing, at least since, the 2021 days when it was Lourdes Gurriel, Teoscar Hernandez, those type of outfielders. I get, this isn't the best defensive team that we've seen, like Jesus Sanchez, not the greatest defender out there. Kazuma Okamoto could be better, as we've seen. Again, another play in this game where it's just not a very good throw to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. That's going to happen. It's happened way too much at this point in this in the season. But like John Schneider's been saying, you got to get back to playing the Toronto Blue Jays brand of baseball, and hopefully we start to see the shift towards that throughout the Dodger series. We saw it in the last game a little bit. Hopefully we see it a little bit more in this Minnesota Twins series.
Yeah, Carter, a couple more guys I just want to touch on. Obviously, we got to talk about Davis Schneider. We got to talk a little bit more about Jeff Hoffman. So let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We're going to touch on some more key guys. George Springer we have to talk about as well. So still a lot to come. Stick with us right after this.
Hey, this is Jeff Carr from Locked On Reds, and when it comes to our futures, we all have great ideas when it comes to our job, when it comes to our house, when it comes to our vehicles, all that great stuff. But honestly, when it comes to securing that future, I don't know what I don't know. And when me and my wife sat down to figure out the life insurance thing, Ethos made everything simple. Everything's online, you have a quick and easy application process, and you find out exactly what you need for coverage all in one spot. Ethos makes everything so convenient when it comes to learning about your own life insurance, because insurance is something that is far beyond batting average or on-base percentage. It's way out in left field for me. Ethos made it all easy. Take just 10 minutes and get covered today with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/lockedonmlb. That's ethos.com/lockedonmlb. Application times may vary and rates may vary.
All right, Carter, as we continue on here, a couple guys we want to touch on. Davis Schneider, this is why I love this guy. Doing the right things. High awareness baseball on the base paths. Taking walks. Using the skill that we all knew he had and was going to use eventually at some point this season was the ABS system. And sure enough, he gets one, right? That strike call at the top of the zone or above the zone in years past rung him up a few times. And it was the most frustrating thing as a Davis Schneider fan to sit there and watch because you know it's not a strike. And now he utilizes it. So big shout out to him, Carter. It was just, it was nice to see that guy have continued success.
It felt like Davis Schneider was like one of the most unlucky players on the Toronto Blue Jays in terms of just bad calls by the umpires. It was like the one year where Danny Jansen was just getting hit by every single baseball that a pitcher threw. Like, it's one of those unlucky seasons. Davis Schneider now has the ability to use the ABS system. We know how well he knows the zone, and now putting it on display. Like, we haven't seen a lot of positives from this offense up to this point. Davis Schneider, I think, is a glaring positive up to this point. One of the better hitters on the team, for better or worse. I mean, that you could say, hey, maybe that's why the Toronto Blue Jays offense hasn't been very good up to this point, because you are relying on Davis Schneider. But I don't want to take away anything that this guy has done. It's professional at-bat every single time this dude's up to the plate. 2 walks, 2 runs on the base paths as well, pretty much winning the Toronto Blue Jays the game. Obviously, Andres Gimenez showing it off the base paths. I love seeing the Blue Jays steal. I think they have a lot of guys that can steal more often. I don't know why they don't do it, especially when they have all the hit and run and the contact in their game as well. But just reading the play, seeing that Miguel Rojas, funny that was Miguel Rojas, that made me feel a little bit better just about how things have went previously. Obviously, you guys know. But Miguel Rojas allowing it to go under the glove and just reading it very well, taking off immediately. Again, a little shuffle step down the line, just analyzes the play and then takes off like a little fighter jet that he is. Absolutely beautiful performance from Davis Schneider. You absolutely love to see it. But I do want to go to the pitching side of things, because Louis Dennis Varland, oh my goodness, this dude, absolutely incredible. Had to go to the middle name to just display what an incredible performance it was. Bases loaded. Dylan Cease looked very good. I want to start off by saying that. At least throughout 5 innings, you get to the 6th inning, the wheels start to fall off a little bit. You have a couple of runs. You allow a base hit. Louis Varland comes in. You need guys to step up in a big situation. That is a situation where we've seen Brendan Little come into and some other pitchers where it has gotten away from them. Louis Varland only allowing 1 run to a Dodgers lineup. Unbelievable stuff from Varland. Incredible.
Yeah, no, you pretty much said it. So I'll leave it there on the Louis Varland talk, Carter Gregory first. But
not quite, but I mean,
it was a guess. Yeah, we've only been friends for like 20 years, but it's fine. No, Carter, I really need to talk about George Springer, because a guy that has not had competitive at-bats at all, but this is a big league hitter, and he has been forever. Great season last year. Right now, what it feels like is George has to get back to 2025 George Springer, where I think right now what we're seeing is slightly 2024 George Springer, where he seems to be swinging at a lot of pitches instead of being as choosy as he was, Carter, and not getting his A swing off when he does take that hack. And I think that's something that is probably frustrating George Springer just as much as it's frustrating us. And again, maybe a guy that's trying to do too much.
See, for me, I think it's a little bit more of a timing issue. I think it's with the front foot a little bit. I think it's him analyzing the fastballs compared to the breaking pitches. I feel like he's always, like, the bat's there and, like, the barrel's there, but his timing's just a little bit off. He's either a little bit early, the front foot's getting down a little bit too early, or maybe the bat's not coming through the zone on a fastball. I feel like the timing is a bigger issue for George Springer. Albeit, like, yes, there could be some better pitch selection. I think everybody throughout the Toronto Blue Jays lineup can benefit from better pitch selection, but I would think it's more of a timing issue for George Springer. But you have seen it with the flashes throughout 12 games. You need to see it more consistently, but not that worried about George Springer throughout 12 games. Don't think it's going to be like 2025. I mean, who would have thought you're not going to get probably an MVP caliber George Springer? But if you get a above average hitter from George Springer, which I do think is still possible, that's going to be a pretty good spot. Just hoping to see a little bit more from him, a little bit more of the clutch hitting. At least we saw one in the Dodger series. Hoping to see a little bit more of that.
Yeah, and sorry, by pitch selection, I don't mean that he's swinging at balls necessarily. I'm more so meaning that he's not taking the pitch that he wants to do damage on. Instead, it's like, it's sort of where it's like if the ball is in the zone, George is going to take a hack or try
he's
to
just
hit
swinging
that
at
ball.
the borderline pitches, but not like almost looking for the specific pitch in the specific spot.
That's right. You know where you get in the box and you think, hey, this guy's throwing a fastball first pitch, so I'm going to sit heater here. And then he drops a changeup on you, and you decide to go swinging anyway, and you get pieces, right? Instead, you got to notice that pitch early. So maybe it is a little bit of timing as well that goes into this. But it's a little bit, I guess, approach as well of, hey, understand that you have to look for your pitch, especially early in an at-bat, where George Springer may be just looking to try to do too much, I guess.
Well, that could be possible. Maybe he is, again, analyzing the fastball, sitting fastball, and then making that adjustment late, and then, again, starting the process late, and then maybe that is what is disrupting the timing a little bit there as well. You could really blame a lot of players on the offense. Like, you look at everybody up and down the lineup, you could expect a little bit more from them. Like, you haven't really had a standout player who's been the best hitter on the Toronto Blue Jays up to this point. Ernie Clement? Vladdy? Like, Vladdy's been good, but he hasn't been
He's not
Vladdy.
Vlad. Yeah, he's not Vlad.
I haven't looked at the OPS and stuff like that. Again, I haven't really been stats watching too much up to this point. What? It's got to be at a 700, 750 OPS. He has one home run and one double. Like, you need a little bit more from that from Vladimir Guerrero Jr., obviously. You need Vladdy to be your best player, especially when you have all these injuries. You have Barger, you have Kirk, some of the guys that you hoped were going to be huge catalysts throughout this lineup. You haven't really seen it from Vladdy, and I know he has traditionally been a slow starter. I don't know if you can do that necessarily this year. You don't really have the flexibility as much as you had in previous years. Yeah, the Toronto Blue Jays are still in an okay spot. But yeah, a little bit unfortunate that we haven't seen the offense click as much as we expected to this point. Wanted to bring this up as well. Jeff Hoffman. I mean, you were asking for it. You were asking for a good lineup. You were asking for that save situation in a one-run game, and you got it. Probably the worst situation you could be in, top of the Dodgers lineup in that one-run game. The Shohei Ohtani at bat, absolutely ridiculous. You're seeing Jeff Hoffman use the splitter and the slider a little bit more. The slider wasn't really there in this game. It seemed like it was backing up on him a little bit, but that swing he got on the fastball from Shohei Ohtani on that high fastball, clearly sitting splitter, sees the fastball and just completely panics. You make Shohei Ohtani swing like that, clearly this is a very good pitcher. I mean, a lot of people know that. More of the issue is should he be the closer? Should he not be the closer? From everything we've seen from Jeff Hoffman up to this point, if you are doubting that this man should be the closer of the Toronto Blue Jays at this point, I have nothing else for you, and I'm not sure what else you're expecting him to do.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what I was going to bring up, Carter. The fact that this is exactly what I asked for, the situation I asked for, the prove it to me. And again, it's one. So I need to see him do it consistently. I still do. But the way that he's looked so far this season gives me a whole heck of a lot more faith than I had, maybe middle to end of the year last year. And again, I go back to the playoffs. Like Jeff Hoffman gave up one bad swing, a pitch over the middle that, it hurt. It hurt big time. But for the rest of that playoffs, he was very good. So you just need Jeff Hoffman to be consistent. And I have full faith that he could do that. But Carter, in saying that, we've held the people here long enough. Off day coming today. So everybody clear, watch this podcast and then clear your head of baseball, right? You can go on a walk. You can, I don't know. What do people do in sort of spring-ish winter still? I sit at home and watch TV or something?
Yeah, it's still weird. We're still at the point where if there's not a baseball game on, it's like, what do you do with yourself? Like, how am I going to take up all this free time? I want to throw one more thing in here, actually. We haven't really talked about this guy up to this point. We've talked a lot about the pitching, but who's the guy in charge of all the pitching? Pete Walker. I mean, the bullpen, if you take out Brendan Little and Tyler Heineman, the bullpen's been absolutely phenomenal. You look at the starting rotation, you take out the guys that either got hurt in their outing or were sick and throwing up in their outing, it's been absolutely phenomenal. And you've seen pitchers that have had success at the major league level doing it in a little bit of a different way. Like Dylan Cease in this game, really known as a fastball slider guy, did not really throw the slider that much. Only threw it 14 times, the sinker 13, the knuckle curve 12, the changeup 11, the sweeper 10. That's a lot more variety, almost like the Yamamoto thing that we saw and absolutely dominate the Toronto Blue Jays the day before. Kevin Gausman throwing the splitter more than the fastball. We haven't really seen that throughout Kevin Gausman's career. Jeff Hoffman, I just brought up, throwing the splitter and the slider a lot more, just kind of mixing that fastball in, not relying on it as much. Mason Fluharty implementing the changeup. Like, you're seeing it everywhere throughout the Toronto Blue Jays pitching rotations, and a lot of that has to do with Pete Walker and what he's doing behind the scenes. So shout out to Pete Walker. What a legend. And we're seeing it on display right in front of our eyes in the times that you need it, even with all of these injuries.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't. This is one of those things that doesn't shock me. Like, Pete Walker sort of overhauling some guys and understanding problems in pitchers. He's just got an eye for it. And we've known that for a very long time. So yeah, Pete Walker probably doesn't get enough credit for what he's able to do year after year after year after year. But he's obviously a dog. And I mean, again, going back to when Dylan Cease signed with this team, there's a reason. One of the reasons is because he knows that this Toronto Blue Jays pitching staff could help him get to that next level. And man, what a level it has been so far this season.
It's definitely been a success on the pitching side. We just got to hope that Pete Walker doesn't celebrate too hard. You know, maybe reel it back in a little bit. We're only 12 games into the year. But
somebody take Pete's keys.
Yeah, exactly. That guy needs a chauffeur. Maybe he can, take along with Tiger Woods at this point. But thank you guys for watching. All the likes, comments, support recently has been absolutely unbelievable. Baseball being back, we're so excited. Clearly, you guys are as well. We do have a promo code finally for the Everydayer Club. I did want to bring that up for you guys as well. Risk-free, ad-free audio, You got the free Discord, exclusive merch, so many different opportunities, and absolutely no risk because it's absolutely free. So we encourage you guys to check out the link in the description. Riding a little bit of a high. I mean, I still have a little bit of PTSD from the baseball we've seen in the White Sox series, the Rockies, in the first part of the Dodgers series, but hoping for better things ahead. Hoping the weather, turns around a little bit. The weather's warming up. Maybe the Toronto Blue Jays season will warm up a little bit as well. But Brayden, you got anything else to add for this one?
No, I feel good. Hopefully, yeah, they keep it going. It'll be nice to have an off day, and then we head into the weekend and, hopefully win a series. But have a good one, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow.